So while I tried to convince myself that God was good and all-loving like I'd always been told, my brain could not get on board.
Like she had always been told. Who told you and why did you listen?
That's why when Christians say things like, "You were never a Christian to begin with," to ex-Christians, it's a ridiculous statement. Many of us tried to be good Christians. We read the Bible, we asked questions, we looked for answers, we prayed to God.
We tried to be good Christians. No one's good except God. A Christian is not a better person than anyone else. A Christian is a person that realizes, I'm a sinner saved by grace, by God's grace. Who would want to leave the source of life, the source of love, the only one that can save you? It's like saying no to a parachute, but you're gonna be pushed off either way. Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Melody, and on this channel I really want to inspire and help you to grow in your faith. If you like my content and you feel like it resonates with you, be sure to like this video and to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and comment your thoughts down below. Let's get into today's video.
There are so many reasons that I left Christianity that I can't even count them at this point. For the first 14 to 16 years of my life, I was a hardcore Christian. I did all of the things, volunteered at church, went to youth group, went on a missions trip, a bunch of stuff like that. But around 16, everything started to feel kind of weird. It felt weird to close my eyes during prayer or to pray out loud in front of people. It felt wrong to raise my hands during praise and worship at my non-denominational church. And this feeling got worse and worse as I got older. And I could not for the life of me figure out why everything felt weird. But looking back on it, I think it's partly because my analytical thinking started to get better. During this time, I knew a lot about the Bible. I was still reading it and trying to find answers, even though it didn't feel like it used to. And because religion was so heavy on my mind, my brain would do a lot of thinking about religious concepts throughout the day. And so many times, questions about God's character and the consistency of the Bible left me confused, because the answers would often end with contradictions and pointed to a bad, angry God who wasn't all loving and merciful like he claimed to be.
Haven't we heard this before? If you're new to my channel, hi and welcome. But if you've been here a while, if you have watched previous videos of mine from the past 2 months or so, you know that this story is very familiar. I've been responding to ex-Christian stories, how they left their faith, and what this woman is saying is nothing new. But the problem is, I don't know how they come to these conclusions. I myself have studied the Bible and read the Bible, and when you stumble across so-called contradictions, you can do your research and easily find good sources that explains it, debunks it, and will help you to get through that. The Bible isn't full of contradictions. And if you do your research in the right way, with the mindset that I want to find the answers, you will find them. And you will realize that there is a logical explanation behind these things that are hard for you to understand. The Bible isn't an easy book. It's a very complex book, but there's always an explanation if you dare to find them. And what she said about things not feeling as they used to, maybe her fire for God got quenched. And that can happen. But that's not a reason to leave your faith. It's a reason to truly seek Jesus with all your heart. You can fast, you can pray, you can spend some alone time with Jesus. You don't have to go to every youth conference and pray in tongues and worship every week, be active in the church community. Sometimes you maybe need some alone time with Jesus to reignite that personal relationship. To go to church and do all of these things are great, and it can really strengthen your faith. But if you're in a place like this woman, maybe it's best to just draw back a little bit and see, okay, where do I stand with God when it comes to that personal relationship? Which it's nothing that she has talked about so far in the video, but I just felt like that was worth mentioning.
So while I tried to convince myself that God was good and all-loving like I'd always been told, my brain could not get on board.
Like she had always been told. Who told you and why did you listen? Why didn't you do your own research? Why didn't you ask questions? Why is God good? What does the Bible say about it? Once again, I really don't get how people can read the Bible in its entirety. How can you come to that conclusion that God is evil if you don't somehow in your heart want it to be that way, so you have a reason to leave? Because who God is so obvious. If somebody died and suffered a terrible death for you, when you didn't even know him, when you ran away from him, that love, that sacrificial love, is like in itself enough to tell you, wow, this God, my God, the God of the Bible, he did the most amazing thing for me while I was yet a sinner. It just doesn't make sense to me how you can truly have read the Bible, and if you truly had that personal relationship with God, and then you're like, oh, God is evil, I'm gonna go. There's something else, and I truly believe these people, they want God to be evil so they can like have an excuse to leave. I'm gonna be honest, that's truly what I think. Maybe not in all cases, but in most cases, if you come to that conclusion that God is evil, it's because you don't want to see his goodness. You don't want to receive his love, his grace.
So every time I would try to praise God or pray to him openly, it felt wrong. Because the idea of God in my mind just didn't make sense anymore. Yet I still maintained my Christianity, though I did separate myself pretty far from a lot of the religious concepts. During these couple years before I ended up becoming an atheist, I took a biblical literature class during college. This educated me a lot on how the Bible was actually written and told me things that I had no idea. This only made it harder for me to believe in God. And a couple years later, I finally admitted to myself that I didn't believe in Christianity anymore. This was an incredibly difficult thing to come to terms with, and it did not come easily. And it doesn't come easy for most people. That's why when Christians say things like, "You were never a Christian to begin with," to ex-Christians, it's a ridiculous statement. Many of us tried to be good Christians. We read the Bible, we asked questions, we looked for answers, we prayed to God.
We tried to be good Christians. No one's good except God. A Christian is not a better person than anyone else. A Christian is a person that realizes, I'm a sinner saved by grace, by God's grace. Oh, I read the Bible every day and did this and that. Well, that's great, but this is not an action-based religion. This is a relationship. This is a faith-based religion. By grace we have been saved, not of good works. Good works comes from faith, absolutely. But that's a different thing. What is said about Christians saying, oh, you were never a true Christian. Well, were you? And if you were, I think also, because if you truly were a true Christian and you actively chose to leave, that's the worst thing you can do. If you truly know his goodness, if you know who he is and you choose to actively leave, that's the worst thing you can ever do. And I think that's why true Christians have really hard concept, because in our minds, knowing Christ is the best thing ever. And to truly know Christ is to also actually be willing, even if it's hard, to lay everything else down in order to follow him. And it's a big, big step, and it's a big, big thing. So if you truly know Christ, once again, and you choose to leave, it means, you're lost, you're gone. And we don't want that for you. And that's why we tell you, if you're an atheist and you say, oh, I left God, we truly don't want that to be true, that you truly knew him. Because if you knew him, number one, you wouldn't come to the conclusion that God is evil. And number two, if you actively chose to leave God, that's like unthinkable, because who would want to leave the source of life, the source of love, the only one that can save you? It's like saying no to a parachute, but you're gonna be pushed off either way, off of the airplane, and you're offered a parachute and you say, no, thank you. I'm gonna jump. I'm gonna save myself. You can't.
And that's what ultimately led us away from Christianity. The lack of answers, the contradictions, and the inconsistencies.
Contradictions can easily be debunked. There are no contradictions in the Bible that cannot be debunked. Unanswered questions. God says in the Bible, seek and you will find. So my question to you is, do you want the answers? Do you want to know the answers? Are you willing to change your heart that's on its way to walk away from Christ and go back if you find the right answers? Because what I've realized talking to people is You can show them all the evidence in the world. You can answer all of their questions. But if they have their mind set on not believing, if they're blind, like the Bible says, nothing will help. Only God can break through in that moment. If there's a blind person, they can have all the answers in front of them and they will still not realize that this is the truth. So it really just boils down to your heart and where you stand with God personally, because you can't blame things on other people. And also, yes, you can do your research and you can find answers, but you shouldn't base your faith, because after all, it is faith. You shouldn't base your faith on like apologetics, on knowing everything. Like, I need to know this and this and this, and it needs to be like stone proof, and then I'll believe. Blessed are those who believe without seeing, Jesus says. So if you truly have that heart of a child and you just run to Jesus and you believe in him, of course, if you want answers, you will find them. But it's all about your heart. Where does your heart stand? Do you truly want to know the answers? So yeah, thanks for sticking with me in this video. Share your thoughts down below, and God bless you so much. I love you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!